Hey, it's Kevin from Pork Pie Hatters in East Village, New York. We have a hat from a customer named Anthony who sent me some vintage hats in the mail. He wants me to, clean it up, reshape it, and get it looking nice and new again. So there's a variety of things I'm going to do to it. First thing, we're going to just get a stiff brush, almost like a nail brush or something, and just clean it. Just going to brush it counterclockwise. I'm going to take all the shape out of it like that. I'm going to just see what's going on with the felt, because there's usually a layer of dust. So remember, always brush counterclockwise every time you brush a hat. A lot of times when you flip it over and do the brim, it's the other way, clockwise. This is not always true, but a lot of times it's true. But the crown of the hat, the part that really shows, is always counterclockwise. There's only a certain way to brush with the grain, not against the grain. And all the felts are laid out the same way. Okay. I've de-dusted it. Now, the only sort of damage I see is right over here on this sort of edge. It looks almost a little bleached out. It's kind of like, I don't know, maybe sun faded. So I'm going to try a little bit of sandpaper. I'm going to try to grind out like 1 millimeter of felt and see if it responds to it. If it doesn't, I'll just quit. But the sandpaper is tough. You have to learn not to make like a hole in the hat, because it looks even worse then. You just did more damage. The customer didn't tell you to do anything, you're making the hat worse. So you got to watch very carefully. Sometimes you make it worse because there's stuff beneath the surface you're revealing, like salt and stuff. In this case, it's working, but a lot of it's very deep, and that stuff's not coming out. So like maybe half of it came out. That's alright though. What I'm going to do is try to conceal that area of the felt inside the creases. Maybe try to crease it right on that line, and that's a good way of disguising it. Okay. And you want to get rid of all this fuzz with sandpaper, so you could use tape or a brush. Tape's a little neater, doesn't get it all over the place. Remember, some of these vintage hats have mercury in them, the really old ones. So that dust inside, the little pieces of felt blowing all over the place, it could be toxic, like heavy metals and stuff. You breathe it in, it sinks to the bottom of your body, and your feet start aching like 30 years from now because you've got heavy metal poisoning. So yeah, be careful with vintage hats. You don't want to breathe tons of that stuff in. We're talking mercury, it's going way back, but most of these hats don't have it. It's a good practice not to breathe in fumes of old hats anyway. Pieces. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to steam this hat. Alright, and we're going to get all the creases out of the top so it's perfectly round. Everything is round by sort of pulling it up against this form. Actually pulling it towards me while the hat is wet. That's what I'm going to do. Steam it, get it wet, and pull it towards me so I make the impression of that steel hat stretcher, which is round. Just warming up the steam now. Could also use the steam to get that corner, to just heat it up and press it down with my fingers or a brush. You can see the corner over there is just a little bit curled up. Okay, that's steam. Let's get that corner first. Remember, never steam the inside of the hat where the leather is, because you burn up that vintage leather. It'll dehydrate any water that's left in it and just burn it in a split second. Then you have to replace it or just rip it out. So keep the steam away from the inside of the hat. Okay. Just soaking with steam, using my fingers to just push the shape out so it gets in all the crevices, everything is open. I want this just to be round and symmetrical, just sort of like a globe. The only way to do that really is to soak the whole top and sides of the top, with steam, and then use some sort of form to round it out. you're starting with a round shape, everything will look great. Okay, so let's use this to pull it towards me. Turn it to the other side. You could pull it towards you, you could pull it downward. Just want to get rid of all those creases as best as you can and just open everything to its original round, open crown shape. Now a lot of that on top won't matter because you got to hide that in the creases and the shadows, but all around the sides and perimeter should be really nice and symmetrical, rounds, no dents, creases, bumps. Concentrate on that area, the front especially, sides. All right. Okay, let's give it a very, very light coating of sandpaper, not coating, let's give it a little bit of sandpaper. What we're doing here is, now as the years go by, there's sort of like a layer of, I don't know, smog and air and dirt that sort of encases all of this, these stains. They get locked in. So what you do is you're almost cracking that outer shell of this dirt. Once you just sort of scrape the whole hat evenly, it has to be very softly, no holes in the hat, softly, but evenly, very evenly. You're breaking that shell, that all this smog and stuff has sort of locked everything in. So once you get that done, the next step is basically just sort of brushing. Kind of vigorously, counterclockwise. Just cleaning it. Okay. Now let's crease the top. We're going to make a center crease. We're going to basically heat up the entire top of the crown where a center crease would be in sort of an oval pattern. So you want to get the crease and everything around the crease too that you're going to do. Should be completely, saturated in steam. If you make creases without steam, they'll look kind of wrinkly and they won't hold, It just won't be permanent. You're sort of creating a memory with this, with the steam. That's what you're doing. You're changing the composition of the felt when it's hot and wet like this. That way, after you crease it and it dries, it will lock that shape in as it cools, and after it cools, and then you've got like a memory. It will always pop back to what we create. Okay. So I'm going to put it down on the table because I want to look at the hat at a bird's eye view. Start in the center, 2 fingers in the center, and then go front and back, like this sort of. And you put your fingers on the inside and fix up that shape. Just make it more symmetrical. Usually got to kind of squeeze it together, kind of like that. Alright, it's good to do this while it's wet. And you're looking for symmetry, and you're looking for this line to be dead on. You don't want it to be slanted or crooked. That's sort of a very typical early novice mistake. And it's something that even happens to me, after years and years of doing it. So just check, the symmetry, and check that you're making that line dead on and not crooked. It should be at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Okay. Next thing, let's do a little teardrop. I think this hat can use a little teardrop action, but what I'm going to do is, I think next, make the creases on the side. Notice that when I took off that layer of dust, it revealed some flaws on the top here. So I want to hide those areas inside the shadows, and that's the only reason I'm teardropping it now, because there's a couple of things that weren't really that visible before that I can see now. So we want to hide them in an area of the hat that's like down inside, a little valley or in the shadows where nobody will see the flaws. Okay, so I'm putting 2 fingers inside, and then I'm going to make the crease. And actually I've got 2 fingers there, and then a finger here and here. Kind of like 2 and then 2 out. Like that. So the fingers on that side, and 2 in the center. Then again, what I do is I check it on top for symmetry and make sure that these creases are the same length, that they're going back to the same area. And correct it from the inside if I see anything that's dented or just off while it's still wet now. And I look at this thing in the front I just made, the 2 pinches. I check that too. Make sure that's correct. Looks pretty good. Could always tweak it later, touch it up later. Now, I've got a center crease, but I think I'm going to try to teardrop it and see how it looks before I can steam it. Let's do a quick version of a teardrop. Just to see how it looks. Teardrop, basically. I guess that would be a teardrop shape. You want to look at the profile of the hat, the front, everything, and make sure you like it as a teardrop. I'm choosing that because, first of all, I like to mix it up. The fellow gave me 2 hats to shape. Sometimes I like to do one as a teardrop, one as a center crease, so he has 2 different, shapes. But, you have to make sure it's appropriate for that hat, that it looks good as a teardrop, where it looks good as a center crease. So what I like to do is I try it. I just do a little version like this, and I don't steam it in, and I don't pinch it tightly, and I just look at it. I look at the shape. Do I like this hat a teardrop? I'm thinking, yeah, let's do it, It's going to hide those flaws, and it looks alright. It looks cool, so let's just do it, But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the back kind of high. Instead of making the back slope really down, I'm going to keep that kind of high. Because it's a vintage hat and it's high, which is what makes it authentic and different from, the hats today. So let's try to keep some of that height of the crown because it looks cool. Make kind of a shallow teardrop that doesn't dip back too much, in the back. It could always go down further later. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the shape of the teardrop first, making it all the lines straight, and then I'm going to steam it in deeper at the very end once I've got it and I'm happy with it. Let's make these 2 pinches in the front here a little tighter. Crease it hard. This one. Crease it hard. Really hard. Now let's steam the back area of the horseshoe, sort of the C crown they call it, back of the teardrop. I'm going to put it on my metal hat stretcher here just to make a nice shape, using my fingers to sort of shape the top of the teardrop at the bird's eye view. I want the movements to be very fluid. There's a few flaws here and there that I'd like to hide, but they're in bad places. I don't know if you can see it. There's kind of like a little stain here that makes it look like almost a dent. Or maybe it is a dent. I think it's actually more like it's sort of a light area, like a bleached out area. Nevertheless, we'll get it looking good. Okay. Now let's do the back of the teardrop. Get this in nice and tight. Now, let's get a little bit more curve to this brim. So I'm going to steam the top of the brim and just push it back. Okay, the flange or the curviness is gone from that brim. So what I'm doing is I'm just pushing it and just making it curvier. Kind of pushing it like all around. Use your thumb, you could use your thumb and finger, but just be careful with the steam. You want to steam against the hat, but push it from the top where the steam isn't at. You don't want to get burnt, you know. Keep the steam away from your fingers. Steaming it right in the corner where the crown meets the brim. Keeping my fingers on the other end. It's pretty hot though. The brim itself is heating up like really hot, just going through the brim. So this is an area where you have to really stir what you're doing and try to concentrate. Don't chat with people and stuff. It's when you get burned. When you chat in the steam. Just pay attention to what you're doing. Be very, very careful. It's a very serious thing. It just takes a split second to get burned, and then you have to deal with that for like a week or two. It's just a bad, bad burn when you get steam burned. Look at what you're doing. Be precise. Don't try to do two things at once. You know? Like making a video and steaming a hat. Okay. That brim looks fine. It didn't really need any kind of special treatment, stiffening up or anything. Now I have to clean up the teardrop. It's still in its kind of almost ready phase. It's almost done though. Let's get these inches a little shorter. One side's going back a little too far. Sometimes you have to do a particular move twice, 2 or 3 times. You find sometimes the steam from doing other areas will knock out what you just did, and other times when the hat just dries, it just kind of comes back. It's sort of like for instance, if you straighten the brim, you put it on the shelf or whatever, you come back to it the next day, it's crooked again. Sometimes you have to do these things like 2 or 3 times. Other times you have to go back and stiffen it and try it again. It didn't really respond or take the steaming because it wasn't stiff enough. That's when you have to add some of your, sizing or hairspray or whatever. We could get into that too. But, if you spray, remember, never spray the leather on the inside. Always cover it. And always dust the hat with tape and get every bit of dust and, lint off before you spray a hat with hairspray. Try not to get it on the band. You're getting it on the felt only. And it's probably more important to get it on the underside of the brim, not so much on the overside of the brim because, that part shows more, so you want to hide the sprayed area if you can. Don't use too much spray, otherwise it's going to get cloudy and hard like cardboard. Always spray from a distance so it becomes like a mist. And there are certain brands that have just bad spray tops that are not, like Aquanet. You can't use Aquanet. You have to use like all these other brands, Suave or whatever. Aquanet has like a different type of a atomizer where the spray comes out to almost like droplets, and you make little drops in that, and it's just hard to control. I would say anything but Aquanet, and you always use the strongest, ultra super hold stuff, and just use it if it's necessary. Don't stiffen a hat just because you think it's a good idea, you want to try it. It's better not to. Keep your hat pure. If you're having problems, the brim's not doing what it wants to, this will help you to steam it, to get better results from steaming, to get some snap in your brim and stuff, but otherwise it's just not necessary. I'll try it without the spray first. Sometimes it's obvious the hat is just so floppy when they show it to you, you know it needs to be stiffened first. but if the hat is super quality, like a vintage hat or Borsalino or something, even though it's floppy, you still can get a nice curve, a really good edge. Like I never stiffened this hat, and you could see it's got a pretty good curve on it now, and there was like no scoop or curve there at all. Kind of just starting. And that's quality. It's good felt. It's pure. And such high quality that they don't have to laminate it with so much sizing and basically cover it in lacquer to control it. What you're doing is you're hardening it with this lacquer, you're making a plastic shell on it, and then you're heating up the plastic shell and shaping the hat, letting it dry. So that shell holds it in its place. But when you have really good, high quality, flexible felt, you don't need all the stiffening. So try not to use it. And this is a vintage hat that's in very good shape. Like I said, there's only tiny flaws on the top that you can't even see anymore. Of course, I hid it somewhere in the shadows here. It's just gone. It's inside the little shadow. I think this came out pretty nice, actually. It's kind of a, you know, a 50s Sam Spade kind of thing. We got the snap back in the brim. Good curve to the brim, snapping in the front and back. A little teardrop there. Now, you know, that's only like, you know, I don't know, 15 minutes worth of work, and I could have worked a lot harder at it if I wasn't explaining. So, you know, the more you work, the better it can be. I could do a half an hour's worth of work. It'll be twice as nice. That's basically it. You know, the more you put into it, the better it winds up. All right, Anthony, your hat is just about done. I'm going to put the finishing touches on it. I'm going to get rid of these little bumps on the top. I also feel like this line here is just not that beautiful or graceful. It could be made a little better. You can see there's that flaw thing that we have to try to hide. It'd be easy to just chop it off and make it lower, but I don't want to make the hat low. So we're going to try to just work more and straighten that out. It's almost ready. The top, I'd also like to make this little bubble here more of a teardrop shaped bubble, kind of like, you know, on the inside, like that or something. So I'll do the finishing touches off camera. I hope you like your hat, Anthony, and see you guys soon. This is Kevin at Pork Pie Hatters, New York.